Welcome back, freshwater fishing novices, new viewers. My name is Moles. This is the Freshwater Fishing Novice YouTube channel, and it's Freshwater Fishing Novice Friday. This week, we're going to talk about what the heck is the fall transition, and what does that mean for your fishing? Let's get right into it. Now, this video is kind of dependent on where you are in the country, but I mean, fall hits all of us. So if you're down south, obviously, you don't have to worry about this for a month or so, maybe. I'm up north. Basically, above me is Canada. What two factors determine the fall transition? The two factors that contribute to the fall transition are going to be time of day, how long the sun's out. The other factor for a fall transition that's going to give it away to you that you're going to know, oh, I'm in the fall transition. It's going to be the nighttime temperatures. You know, the daytime temperature is 80, 90. It still seems like summer, kind of. But then when you get to nighttime, sun goes down, all of a sudden it's a little bit cooler. You're like, maybe I need a hoodie? Welcome to the fall transition. Now, what has this done to our poor little fishies? In the summer, bass split into two different groups. We got our shallow bass and we got our deep offshore bass. In the fall transition, these two groups are going to act completely different. We're going to talk about how they act differently, and if you want to target, say you're a shallow fisherman, where are your shallow fish going? If you're an offshore fisherman, where the heck are those fish going? Offshore fish in the summer, what are they going to hang out next to? They're going to congregate and focus on like rocks, ledges, and current seams. Now, our shallow fish in the summer, what are they going to hang out next to? They're going to hang out in like docks, grass, tree cover, laydowns. That's where most of our shallow fish are going to hang out during the summer. Now, what happens to these fish in the fall? So the shallow fish, they're going to focus and hold to hard cover. You know, when the grass starts dying back, and you know they're normally in the grass, and that grass has started dying back. Now they're going to move to hard cover. So maybe there is a grass field, and then there's some laydowns, you know, trees and stuff like that. The fish are going to tuck right up against those trees. The bass are going to abandon that dying grass immediately because there's no oxygen there. It's just dying. It's garbage. So they're going to move to the thickest pockets of grass that you could possibly find. So if you want to, you know, focus on those grass pockets, you're going to want to look for the very dense, alive grass that's still kicking around in the pond or lake. The other hard structure that shallow bass are going to hang out next to is going to be like dock pilings or docks. They're not hanging out there for shade. They're hanging out for comfort. So they can be next to something. And, you know, if there's a dock piling, they can pop out and ambush. So that's why they're going to be focused at dock pilings and, you know, docks and stuff like that. It's less for shade. It's more for ambush purposes and comfort. So that's what the shallow fish are doing. What about the deep fish? The offshore fish, they're going to be congregating and bunching up more. And what they're doing is they're following bait fish. So the bait fish are going to do the same thing. They're bunching up and they're moving around. The offshore fish are going to do the same thing and follow the bait fish because that's their food. It's like following your grocery store, you know what I mean? Oh, the grocery store moved. There's no food in town. Everyone's going to go to the next town to find food. Offshore bass, they're going to move to like deeper holes. They're going to gather on the best transitions. So, I mean, if you look at your depth map, your lake map or whatever, wherever you think the best transition is, the bass are going to go there too. What you want to look for is going to be like deep rock next to the deepest holes for the offshore fish because they're going to be stacked up in there and ambushing. What's the reason that the fish like those deep holes? Well, they can regulate their temperature. So, you know, if the temperature changes and the water's changing temperature, it's more easy to regulate their body temperature by moving up and down the water column in those deep holes. They can control that a little better. That's why they're down in those deep holes. The other upside to those deep holes is that they can access the bait fish on those steep transitions. You know, the bait fish are up here, they're in a deep hole, they can move up, smash a fish, and then come back down and chill out. Basically digest their fish or their food, their dinner, what they just ate. Now, lures. We're going to talk about lures? We're going to come back around to lures. Let's talk about fish corralling bait fish. So the bass are going to corral bait fish. If you have a featureless lake, it's just round, there's no structure or anything like that. If you find a little point, now at this point right here, there's a point coming out. Now you can see it's like it comes in, right? So the bass are going to push bait fish up into it. I don't want to say it's a corner because it's rounded, but I hope you guys know what I mean. they're gonna pack those bait fish in there and then back off and then eat as they want. So that's how they're gonna corral against like a little arm. On the other side of that arm, they're gonna corral fish on that side. So both sides are good places to target. Now the other place that the bass are gonna sit is right off that point, right? You know, looking straight at it, because they'll be able to hit bait fish on both sides. I hope that's helpful. I thought it was interesting. The other thing about the fish corralling bait fish, they don't care how shallow it is. They're not concerned at all. So it could be 5 feet of water. It could be 2 feet of water. They're gonna push them shallow and they'll sit right there and corral those bait fish and just munch until basically it's all exhausted and there's no more bait fish. Let's talk about a lake with like fingers and arms and stuff coming off of that. I'll put a picture up here. What's gonna happen in a lake like this with the fingers and stuff like that? The offshore fish are gonna move away from the deep. They're gonna corral bait fish and they're gonna move them up the arms, basically to trap the bait fish so they can feed on them. What you're looking for in those fingers, you're gonna, if you're looking at the lake map, you wanna find the deepest channel going up those fingers. 25 feet, great. 100 feet, better. What the bass will do is they will sit deep after they've corralled the fish up shallow in those arms, and they will come up and eat the fish. In 25 feet of water, you might find a handful of fish. In 100 feet of water, you're gonna find a ton of fish for the same reason of body temperature regulation. So they'll be able to adjust and deal with the environment of the water cooling and heating better where it's deeper, because they can control that, move up and down the water column. But they still have all their bait corralled in that creek arm, so they can come up and hit it. So I hope that's helpful. Let's talk about a smaller, let's say a pond that has no features. It's just round. We're going back to this. Now I talked about the fingerlings and all that stuff. You know, if you go off the fingers, they're all deep up there. But in a small pond or a lake where it's just round, there's no features, no laydowns, nothing like that. Think about it on a micro scale or a macro scale, or very small scale, like scale it down. So instead of having a point actually come out where you can see it, it's land, think about like a log sticking out. And now they're gonna use that log like a point. So what the bass will do is they will corral fish into that corner of that log and where, you know, the shore is, and they will just hammer those fish. There might not be a lot of them right there. It might be 4 or 5, maybe 2. On a bigger scale, obviously there's more fish. That's what's happening with the fish in the fall transitions and where they're gonna move and stuff like that. You might be interested in what kind of lures will work. You could throw anything and it might work. What I've heard and found in the fall, we'll talk about 4 or 5 different lures, baits, that you can use for fishing in the fall transition. Lures for fall transition. We're gonna talk about a grass lure, a structure lure, reaction lures. I got 3 reaction lures, a grass lure, and a hard structure lure. Let's talk about the grass lure first. A Texas rig craw with a ounce and a half weight, like a bullet weight. That's what you're gonna toss in the grass that's still alive. You're gonna toss that around and you're gonna hop that back. You wanna peg that weight too so it doesn't move. You want that stuck right to your soft plastic and the 5/0, what did I say? 4 to 5/0 wide gap hook, extra wide gap hook with a 1 ounce bullet weight. If you can get away with less and get it through the grass, then do that. If the grass is really thick, you're gonna need 1.5 ounces, which might require a special rod. As a freshwater fishing novice, maybe go a little bit less, maybe 1/2 to 3/4 of an ounce. You probably have a rod that can handle that. Now for hard structure, we're gonna use a jig, pitching style jig. On the back, what I'm gonna pair that with is gonna be like a beaver tail. It's right there. And that's what you're gonna toss around docks and hard structure and trees and stuff like that. Now for reaction lures. Square bill crankbait, you know, something brighter. And then as you move more into the fall, you're gonna use more of a natural kind of translucent color or just subtle natural color. The good thing about the fall is the grass is dying off. So you're using a crankbait and you feel a little bit of grass and you can just rip that through. So you're cranking, crank, 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 pause, crank, pause, crank, crank, pause. If you feel grass, you can pull it right through that and the grass will just rip right off of it because it's dead. And you go back to your crank, crank, pause, crank, crank, pause. And that's how you're gonna retrieve that square bill crankbait. It's the next reaction bait. 4/0 extra wide gap hook, and you're gonna use a fluke right there. You know, it's got the forked tail. and that is a walk the dog lure, but it's subsurface. So you let it sink a little bit and you start walking the dog with it. And that thing will just shoot back and forth and get a fish to react. You just got to toss it around. I don't know. You can toss it around like docks, and you can toss it over grass. It's not so much of a deep lure. Now the last reaction lure I'm going to talk about is absolutely one of my favorites. Supposedly it only works in spring and fall, but I had luck all summer on this. I wouldn't say a ton, but it still worked. It's a walk the dog lure. Spook, what do they call it? Pencil popper? I don't know. And you're just going to toss that out and walk it back. And you want to toss that around like shad. If you see bait fish, early and late is when you're going to use this lure. So like early in the morning, later in the evening, not so much during the day. It's going to die off. The fish haven't moved. They've still pinned all those bait fish, so you're going to have to switch lures. So you're not in the wrong spot, but early and late with that topwater lure around the bait fish, it's going to be pretty freaking awesome. All right, freshwater fishing novices, new viewers, I hope you guys found this video educational, less entertaining. Don't get discouraged in the fall. The fish are still there. They're just doing something different, and you got to adjust and adapt. Thank you for watching this week. My name is Moles. It's been Freshwater Fishing Novice Friday. This is the Freshwater Fishing Novice YouTube channel, and I'm the Freshwater Fishing Novice. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll catch you next week.